Arctic Circle will be in the never-ending daytime. As the northern hemisphere tilts toward the sun, the whole Arctic Circle is submerged in sunlight, no matter the direction. Yet, all of a sudden, on the 20th of July 2018, areas of Siberia in the far north had 3 hours when day suddenly turned into night. What's up everyone, I'm JT at X Science, and today I'm bringing you the story of the bizarre 3-hour night in Siberia, as well as some updates on Mars and the Moon that took place late last July. Now, like I said in the beginning, on the 20th of July, Siberia turned dark. For everyone who has gone to basic geography, you would know that during summertime, the Arctic tilts toward the sun, and is submerged in 20-hour sunlight. This is very basic knowledge, so I will not talk too much about it. If you don't know about it, which is unlikely, please find a way to inform yourself first and get back to this video. Anyway, the northeastern part of Siberia, including places like Ivano-Byzantinsky and Zygansky on the district Yakutia, were submerged in darkness for several hours, from around 11 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The story was also reported in outlets such as the Siberian Times. But that was not all which was unusual during this event. In the extreme northern territories, locals reported a thick layer of dust covering everything after the darkness lifted. Additionally, water bodies turned murky with contaminants. Also, there was an orangish-yellow tone of color as the darkness fell. What was stranger is that during the early morning hour of that day, people reported a drop in temperatures by about 20 to 25 degrees. That's half the temperature in this region during this time of the year already, so it was definitely very abnormal. Now, so far there have been no official explanation, but hypotheses include the following. First of all, Wi-Fi access. We all know that Europe suffers from hundreds of Wi-Fis during the earlier weeks of July, and it is very possible that somehow the access got picked up and delivered to Siberia on July 20th. But at the same time, it is not so possible because the air was very still that day. Also, these theories do not explain the layer of dust on the ground and in the water as of why only in the far north. Another theory proposed the possibilities of volcanic ashes, but the closest volcano is 800 miles away, and again, why only ashes in the far north and not elsewhere in the region that was affected by the darkness? Solar eclipse was never a theory here because we know that there was no solar eclipse on 20th of July. If there were, it would have been all over the mainstream media because, why would we want to censor a solar eclipse? It's basically harmless. A final possible explanation here is possibly a nuclear weapon testing. This is Russia we're talking about, so that can very well be a possibility. But if it was a nuclear weapon test, there would have been an explosion, not to mention radioactive elements floating all over the places, which must have been detected. So in short, the bizarre darkness in Siberia in July is still a mystery without any scientific or official explanations or warning. Now here's some updates on the other events near the end of July. The first one involved the red planets. During the late night of the 26th and early morning of the 27th of July, Mars approached its opposition, and by that I mean Earth will be exactly in between Mars and the Sun. More interestingly, on the 31st of July, Mars will be at its closest position to the Earth in mankind's recorded history. Here's where it gets weird, because in 2003, Mars made the headline when scientists calculated that it came closest to the Earth in 60,000 years. Now, 15 years later, it suddenly came closest again. It could be an error in calculations, but it could also be that A rogue planet is coming closer to the inner solar system and making things change in a way that we could not previously calculate. As we all know from previous updates, Planet X can affect the whole solar system not only because of its impressive size, but also its bizarre comet orbit. Another event also on the 27th of July was a lunar eclipse. Nothing new. The blood moon appeared because the Earth blocked the sunlight and only a fraction of light reached the moon and got reflected back, and all the visual physics thing. What I would like to say more here. Let's link that to Planet X. When it passes by the Sun, the Moon and the Earth, it will create a solar eclipse where the Sun turns black and a lunar eclipse where the Moon turns red. Then, star poles would indicate, I assume, the debris that orbit Planet X, which enter the Earth's gravitational field and become meteors. Of course, it will not happen then. I'm just making you aware that even religious sources align with science when it comes to Planet X. Also, do not trust all the dates given on the internet because honestly, no one knows for sure when the planets will arrive. So dates will be pushed back further and make the argument lose its point. And that would be all I want to say in this video today. Make sure you guys stay up to date and keep looking to the ground, the sky, basically everywhere around you for signs. Feel the temperature, the lights, and the sound. Signs are all around us, like the temperatures drop before darkness falls. Also give us a thumb up and subscribe because we have more videos coming out real soon. Stay safe guys. This is JT at X-Science, signing out. As water is one of the most abundant visible substances around us and also one of the most responsive to external factors, the bodies of water on our planet's surface are among the first parts of the Earth to react to internal and external cosmic changes. Since 2017, several alarming phenomena have appeared, all related one way or another to bodies of water. The strange receding of water in the Gulf of Thailand, the Barents Sea being invaded by the Atlantic, and worrying seismic activities throughout the rings of fire in the Pacific. While the media gave these occurrences little attention and coverage, their scope and influence on the physical world are not something to belittle. What's up guys, JT at X-Science again. In today's video, we are going to cover some very interesting or alarming news, whichever way you see it, on what have been happening in or around our oceans in June 2018 and beyond. Without further delay, let's get straight to the first one, in the Gulf of Thailand. The unexplained sudden and strong receding of water that was witnessed in many nations in 2017 returned, this time along the beaches of Thailand and Cambodia. The phenomenon was so intense that the water retreated as far as over a mile from the shore, shocking both the coastal residents and the intelligentsia. It was an unprecedented experience, where so much water disappeared that whole coral reefs along the Gulf were exposed. There was no plausible explanation, and the phenomenon was then attributed to the forming of a storm. Some may theorize that the arrival of Planet X has started causing distortion in the Earth's gravity, which in turn result in tidal-like changes in the water body. Of course, that still left many unanswered questions and a big mystery in its place. Perhaps in time, we will learn of the truth behind it. Almost halfway across the globe, a silent invasion is taking place under the floating icebergs of the Barents Sea. A huge part of the Arctic Ocean off the coast of Finland and Russia, known as the Barents Sea, is being taken over by the Atlantic Ocean, in a process that is almost unrecognizable to most humans, save for a few oceanographers and seafarers. Water from the Atlantic Ocean is fueling the Barents Sea, converting it into a completely different entity. The diminishing existence of sea ice in the north of Barents results in less freshwater melting on the surface of the sea. This, in turn, allows warmer water with higher salt content from the Atlantic to make its way to the surface, replacing the cold water that previously contributed to the formation of sea ice, increasing the existing problem with the lakes of ice. The cold water now found itself making its way towards the Atlantic. This repeating circle rendered the Barents Sea unable to contain enough fresh water to sustain itself transformations of a large body of water. But it did not stop there. Oceans, along with the sun, are the driving factors behind our planet's climate. As the cold water was displaced into the Atlantic, the stratospheric jet stream will be elongated as the cold Arctic air will follow the water southward. This elongated jet stream will create lasting cold weather by disrupting the stratospheric polar vortex, which then extends the thawings of ice in the Arctic. These effects were observed last winter, when the vortex slipped to the south towards the Atlantic, allowing warmer air to enter the Arctic, further accelerating the thaw of ice in the region, while subjecting Europe and Asia to an abnormally colder winter. Researchers are concerned that the changes are already past the point of return. If this fear is proven right, the jet stream will continue to stretch further south, disrupting the polar vortex and accelerate the reductions of ice in the Barents and the Arctic. If let go unchecked, soon there would be little ice left in the wide stretch of Northern Ocean, further worsening the rising of sea levels. Seismologists and geologists, on the other hand, have their attention on another ocean's immediate area. Throughout summer, many have expressed their concerns about the prospect of a devastating series of earthquakes along the San Andreas Fault. The San Andreas Fault is a part of the Rings of Fire, a series of borders between tectonic plates around the Pacific Ocean, which constantly saw seismic activities as the tectonic plates actively interact with each other in these regions, resulting in frequent earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and subsequent tsunamis. If you have been following our series on natural disasters, you will probably know of the Rings of Fire roaring back into life, most evidently in the eruptions of Mount Kilauea in Hawaii. Anyway, scientists are studying a newly discovered section of the San Andreas Fault, where the so-called tectonic time bomb can explode anytime. The first step of caution was already taken in May 2017, when the U.S. Geological Survey seismologists instructed individuals to start protecting themselves instead of dismissing the threat. An extension of the fault, known as the mid-ladder structure, above the southern seas south of Palm Springs, is now believed to be where the next major earthquakes would happen. The area was discovered during an extensive geological study of the southern tip of the fault zone. It is located in the upper 3 miles of the ground and has a broken ladder-like pattern. This geo-pattern increased the chance of a magnitude 9 plus events in both ends of California to over 75%. Officials from the USGS have indicated that such an earthquake may be preceded by an increase in seismic activities for a few years, with force shock of magnitude 5 along the fault. Changes in the Earth's surface as well as elevation changes may help in determining a time frame for the next big earthquakes along San Andreas. Further west, at the center of the Rings of Fire in Hawaii, the volcanic rage refused to ease, and Fissure 8 continues to channel lava towards the sea. The flow speed is about 17 miles per hour, and it is creating rapids at the lava cone's base, where homes and roads once was. At Kilauea summit, the Halemaumau crater has doubled in size while the lava flow have effectively enlarged the Kapau Delta up to a shocking 380 acres. Whole communities were wiped out and many were interned in shelters when the eruption began in May 3rd. In June, an earthquake above magnitude 5 had been recorded at the summit, leading to new cracks appearing along the fissures, widening to almost 100 feet and getting from 40 to 50 feet deep. Now back to the oceans themselves. The Guardian's Environmental Edition published an article on June 26 that was a wake-up call for the people living along the US West Coast, a warning about a largely unnoticed and underrated change that have been taking place in the world's oceans. They are heating up. Similar to what's happening to the Barents Sea, the heating up starts a chain reaction, enough to increase the melting of land-based ice and glaciers, which leads to rising sea level in return. People are arguing about the driving factors behind it, but regardless whether it was the atmospheric warming or volcanic activities, the situation continues to deteriorate and threaten the livelihood of many people. The article also provided a very interesting piece of information. In 1986, divers of the South relics of the rise in sea levels in the past, approximately 5,000 years ago, as the age of the structure suggested. What's alarming is the science suggested that the rising seas was not a gradual process, but a series of rapid surges over a time period. The sudden rise of the sea levels might have been related to a series of ice melting and deglaciation, or perhaps another unforeseen cause. As the question remains, maybe it's time we start to look around for pieces of information, as this is no small matter. A big portion of human population lives in coastal centers of civilizations, and even a bigger portion of our modern economies depend on the seas and seaborne trade. As such, a large-scale ice melt and falling rise of water level would easily affect the life of hundreds of millions and the economies of billions more. And the ice is really starting to melt. The warming of ocean current below the surface is causing ice sheets in the Antarctic Peninsula and Greenland to collapse much faster than anyone could expect. Some chunks of ice were so massive that they caused magnitude 6 or 7 earthquakes upon their falling. An example of this is what happening at Jakobsgraben glaciers in Greenland, which lost more ice in 10 years than it did last century. Satellite images show that the glacier retreated about 8 miles in the entire 20th century, but in only 10 years from 2001 to 2010, it retreated an additional 10 miles. One thing we have already known is that the rate of sea level rising have been doubling every 7 years, to the extent of tidal surge that accompany major storms, which invade further inland each time. Another reality is that wetlands and lowlands by the seas are sinking or being lost to the encroachment of the seas. For example, in Southeast Louisiana, or more famously, in the Netherlands. That's it for today, guys. These news on the oceans are very interesting, but even more so unnerving. We may have failed to no means to prevent or undo what is happening, but by informing each other and people around us, at least we have a better picture of what is coming and which course of action to take as the ice is melting and the sea levels are rising at an increasing rate. Like and subscribe to our channels as we have more updates coming out often, and we would really appreciate your support. Stay safe and look out at your physical surrounding as well as the sky. This is JT at X Science, signing out.